are going to spend, 50 minutes taking the wonderful discussions that we've had over the last few days and turning them into next steps, action plans. So this is a bit of a downer from this wonderful discussion that we've just had to get specific about what NCCI could do moving forward. And NCCI is all of you. We are all part, and you are all part now, forever and ever, part of this network on Central Media. So what I want to do now, very quickly, is just go back and remind ourselves what NCCI is, what we can do, what we can't do, how we can do things, and then hear from everyone and have a discussion with flip chart about what are our next steps, what's our action plan, how can we take all of these wonderful ideas and turn them into a plan to move forward, recognizing that we have limited capacity, everyone has their responsibilities in their day job, but we have such an amazing group of people and amazing experiences here in this room. What can we do together? So, to go back to what the purpose is of NCCI, and I just want to, before we do that, go back to the very beginning, the very germ in New York City, where the original founders, Sandeep, Trishna, Meghna, two people who aren't here, Pinky Mondal and Jenny Miller, had this germ of a thought to bring people who love this landscape and who are working in this landscape together. And here we are, over a decade later. But what can we do? What are we trying to do? We're trying to foster this community, this wonderful, fun community. We can be a foundation for building knowledge and sharing knowledge. We're working towards Jugalbandi, our Jugalbandi between nature and people, and there's another kind of Jugalbandi which has emerged over the last few days, and that is the Jugalbandi between the ground level experiences and the high level national targets and international goals, and how do we bring those together to be in harmony? How can we actually do this? What are the mechanisms that we have for NCCI? We can convene groups, we can convene smaller groups on different topics. That's something we can do. We can gather evidence and work towards providing information to the right places as much as that is possible, and as Sejal said, that's sometimes challenging. We have our small grants, which not only provides a little bit of funding for people to do their work, but also allows us to grow our network and involve new people, as we've heard today from, over the last few days, from Amin and Sumit, the wonderful students and early career who have come into our network through the small grants. So that's another thing. So we want to spend the next 20, 30 minutes on getting towards an action plan that comes out of this time we've spent together. And I just want to start off with some thoughts, just ideas, and then we can open it up, thinking back about the discussions that we've had on the last day. So going back to day one, which is about conflict, connectivity, and coexistence. It's very clear that as all of you have said, that the success with conservation leads to new problems with conflict. And I'm not sure what the right next step is or what NCCI can do on that topic, but it is very clear that we should think hard about what is something that we can do to move forward. Sorry? About conflict, yeah. We also have, going back to the first day, the Wakchal, and moving forward with these outreach efforts about improving awareness and understanding about the importance of connectivity. Anything more on that? Amrita, welcome me for that. Yep.
That's a specific ask. So we're not going to get that campaign in any way, real or shape or form, going to the people we want to speak to, if we're not going to be able to fill up gaps. And one of the main gaps we need is who's working in each corridor. And not just on the wildlife side, who's working on the agriculture side. Who's working with the actual managers of the ground. Who has relationships with the DC in one division or in like one district, and who knows the territorial forest departments. And we can say that we know the names and we know the DFO offices. That's not what I'm saying. That's preliminary. We actually need to build out what we're going to do, and we're not going to be able to do all those corridors together, certainly not as a single node. But everyone here is working in one of these landscapes. And really, Aditi and Ananda, we did this as a call before. We really need that information, because those information cards are going to just be pretty things that sit in offices and never get used. So this is a huge NCCI call. I will be an ag about this, I promise you.
Moving to our discussions on day 2, we've had a lot of enthusiasm and hands raised about the idea of a restoration roundtable. So we want to think through what that actually means and how that can be useful. One thought is to start out small scale in a particular locale. This landscape around Kanha is sort of our home turf, so that would be perhaps the logical place. But to bring the right people together and think how we can move forward with the restoration agenda. The other aspect to think through is how to engage with this tsunami of the carbon market. It's here, it's not going away. There's a lot of finance that's looking for good, fundable, justifiable projects. So how do we engage with that trend, that reality, whether we like it or not, that is the reality. Another aspect that we might want to think about is how do we've had so many wonderful conversations and interactions with our colleagues who are working at the local level. How do we move that forward? How do we truly engage them in the work that we're doing, and clearly in roundtables? Yeah, and so that's one other aspect. And a very, very immediate issue is whether we want to do a press release from this symposium, and if there is anyone who would want to take that on. So those are just some initial kinds of thinking to get the discussion going about the actions and the next steps coming out of this fun time that we have had together. So, how do we do this? Should we put that up on the, so everybody can refer to it somehow? Tape it up on the wall or something. So I'm going to open it up to, my only request is that we keep it very pointed about what we can actually take and go away and think about our next steps for NCCI.
So I'm actually going to put this way. Sorry, say in the corner there, I don't have a detailed stand for this right now, but it's got those 5 points, and I'll go over each of them. Thanks. So the first one is conflict, and I feel like we're just going to either spend a lot of time on this and still not get that just there. Okay. Yeah.
Your definition of conflict.
Exactly, right? And so one of the things that Tejal pointed out, and for me really, personally, and this is why we have to do this as a group, is that crop rating thing. Like for me, I really feel like that is where we have to do something. But in the last year, all of us have heard a lot more about conflict with tigers than we have. Like this stuff sort of goes under the radar all the time.
We have heard, but if you look at the media, if you look at the press, if you look at the issues there, it's all about crop trading.
Okay. So yeah, I actually don't know the answer to this one. I don't know what is the next step for conflict.
Is that the framework of conflict?
I think those two aspects are certainly
implementation.
yes, but I don't think that's what we're going to do with this particular piece. I think when it comes to communities, please further down. Yeah, just to keep things in separate buckets for now. And it can turn out to be different. Like that's
So, Miriam Walker was here in
Yes,
a couple
couple of
of
months.
previous CILS, and I remember he had some really interesting ideas and research going on how to deal with this.
I really like that.
But I don't know who's following up. I don't think he's working on this topic anymore, but
He
we
had-
follow up with him and see what's
Yeah. And so the next follow-up for that, for those of you who were there during that time or those CILS, you'll recognize that it was essentially, I'm going to paraphrase very badly, but I can send people resources. He basically used game theory to make sure that if there was a cooperative way of reporting your crop rating, lying was your worst choice. If you collectively lied, you got less compensation. If one of you lied, you got less compensation. If everyone was honest, everyone got better compensation. A bit more analysis, like if it hasn't worked because of relationship building, is that our next step? After we do this, if it hasn't worked because there isn't enough buy-in to even get this off the ground, is that our next step? What I'm hearing from this group is we're not sure yet of our next step, but first we have to figure out what we have to do. Is that accurate, a reading of the room? Yes, no, maybe?
Who could maybe help us with coming up with apps that we can all trial in our different places. So at least if we had some similar approach or methodology, that all of us who are working on this issue can say, okay, we're going to try it and come back to you with feedback on yes, it didn't work, this is why it didn't work, so we can keep improving on the technology. But if there's no critical mass trying it out, then you can't even improve on it, right? There's not enough people who are collectively saying, yes, this is a key problem, we're going to find a solution. So I think the idea of a working group is great. To me, the working group is not going to work unless there's a leadership. Yeah, we've been through enough of these working groups where they just fizzle out because nobody has accountability or ownership. And I would say if we are forming this working group, let's form it, let's try, let's develop the apps, let's test them. Let's just, for a year, see what we can come up with and also put out articles, put out things to say, here's what we're doing. But it's going to need somebody who owns it. And if we can get that owner, and I don't think it should be an unpaid job. I don't think it should be something that we expect somebody to do as part of their work. I think we should collectively pay somebody. We should collectively hire somebody who's a crop rating conflict manager or whatever you want to call it, who is actually leading and coordinating this group and this work. Only then is it going to move forward, otherwise we'll be talking about it again 3 years later.
Do we agree as a group with a paid coordinator for this, or that we're never going to get there?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, that's one thing. Just to add to that statement, one of the things with collation and information gaps is some of us are really trying to get the information to the people, right? So we keep doing this. It'll be on the web app, it'll be on our website, but we need to find better ways to take it to the people who are actually doing this, because like you said, if they don't know we're working on it, we're back at square one. Okay, so I think we have some pieces here for conflict. Now first next step is, this working group needs to be formed, person needs to be found to be the paid leader of this group, and then we flesh out a plan. That's for conflict. We good here? NCCI? Yays, nays?
Are we doing that now?
We're not going to be able to form that now, because then we're going to spend half an hour doing that now. We have like
But take down
7
the
things.
group names of people who are here.
If you are interested on this sign up sheet, will
Yeah.
Basically, organizations.
Yeah.
can you guys do a sign up sheet at the bottom of this conflict sheet when we're doing lunch? Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, great. So sign up sheet for organizations or names will be on.
I think one of our key learnings from previous efforts with action plans is exactly that. Everything we do needs to have a coordinator, a paid, maybe it's part-time, but a paid position that makes the effort, because everyone has their responsibilities and is busy with their job. So as well-intentioned as people are, there needs to be someone. So we'll just take that on as a principle of everything we decide to do.
Okay, and then for Bagchal, I already said that. I'm going to email the whole of the NCCI. We're going to go possibly corridor by corridor, but I'll give specific things we need plugged information-wise.
Most of the people who do restoration aren't looking at databases. They have tools to work with soil and seedlings, and they don't really have access to computers. So what you need to do is create a simple toolkit that takes the science and makes it translatable to folks. Here are the species, here are the conditions, and here are the situations that you would plan these, do this restoration work. And of course, for me, being a connectivity person, you would do restoration in the context of improving connectivity because that's the biggest bang for your buck in the matrix.
Thanks, Gary. I think the other thing that I find super interesting about this idea, we were talking a bit about how that wild stuff will really tackle something, and maybe it's water, and we'll get to it, but it's a discussion and we want to have it with people from one landscape to flesh out priorities.
Yeah, to make for the restoration roundtable,
we need to have a river-based focus as well, because rivers would be connectivity, rivers would be water and water security, and rivers is where all ideologies and all kinds of people, not just conservationists, will have to converge. And when we talk of river restoration, we will have a policy where we will walk out of the administrative order domain, we will be able to create a grid. And there are rivers which connect landscapes. Like I am from the Western Ghats, there are rivers which emerge in the Western Ghats which go to the Satpura landscape. So working through rivers would be, I would like to help towards that.
Because the concept does working at the small case study and then testing it out work for the NCCI.
Yeah. So at a higher level, just one comment, like for example, UN has a very good course on restoration design and everything. It's called Learning for Nature and it's open source and everything, right? As a financial professional, I did that to understand what are the basics and science behind it and all this sort of stuff. Where we really struggle, that those are very high level set of principles, objectives, etc. How do you translate that into a particular setting, and then how do you filter them into actionable points? Right? And that's where I see this round table playing a major role, because now you selected a setting and you bring all the players in place and then follow those procedures and then bring actionable insights into it.
Well, the idea of
Community groups, forest rights. You have think tanks who kind of proactively and react to certain policy or law, but I find that severely lacking in the conservation space, whether it be related to conflict, whether it be related to laws, whether it be related to any issue. There is no one platform across the country, or even you might have a WWF, you might have WCT or various groups across the country working on the individual level. But when we have an issue where we all need to come together, we're just scrambling around trying to get people on that platform. And I think we need to put together something at the policy level which sort of again a coordinator who looks at even one landscape, if we are thinking on the Central Indian landscape. And proactively is looking at, okay, what is the urban development plan of, say, Bhopal? How is it going to impact the tigers of Bhopal? So not just reacting to, say, a linear threat or whatever be, but also proactively thinking even conflict. So how can we look at, okay, this is what the information we have on your conflict. Who do we reach out to make things happen? So things like that.
So I have a clarification here. Are you suggesting we have not found the think tanks, but they exist? Or are you suggesting we should be the think tank?
This is huge gap. There isn't a conservation policy think tank as far as I am aware.
So we have to figure it out.
You have individuals working
Think
collectively,
tank figuring it out.
but think tank, network,
Some platform. Yeah.
something.
Something between the science and the policymaker, like you.
Science and the policy makers.
Or the decision.
Yeah.
Similarly, communities. We've done badly on it for many years. We're trying to get there. It's a thing where we have less expertise than many others. We're trying to get more expertise in the room. One of the things that we hear over and over is that we need to do more with communities, and we've acknowledged it every time. This morning I was speaking to a couple of people, yesterday I was speaking to a couple of people. There's some good ideas. I think for the community thing to really take shape, be ethical, be respectful of how we do this, there needs to be a working group. And this working group also will need a paid person. We need to figure out what's our core ethics in these engagements. We need to figure out how far we're going to go. But that seems to be an idea that was come from discussions I had through the last 3 days. I wonder what the next 2 5
I wonder what to do.